Alright, so I just got done watching NJPW AEW Forbidden Door, and I just have one question. Is Japanese wrestling really as stupid as this pay-per-view made it out to be? Or was this just like a one-off thing? The reason why I ask is because of several things that happened during the matches in the pay-per-view. And before I go any further, I just want to let it be known that I am not an expert on Japanese wrestling at all. The only Japanese wrestling I have ever been exposed to is Japanese wrestling that is featured on AEW. And yeah, I know there are people out there who will say you're not a real wrestling fan unless you've seen the entire trilogy between Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay in New Japan. So I know I'm going to be dismissed as a mark and, not knowing what I'm talking about and just being too ignorant. However, I feel like all the more that's why my question should be addressed, because as someone on the outside looking in, I am asking the fans, the diehard fans of Japanese wrestling, why do you hold this in such high regard when the wrestling itself doesn't even make any sense? You've got guys doing tombstone pile drivers and shooting star presses only to finish the match with a ripcord clothesline or a running forearm. I just don't get it. Two guys in this event even had the same unimpressive finisher. There was that guy, Ace, whose finisher is just like a basic diving splash from the top rope. There was another guy on the pre-card named Phantasma, former member of the Bullet Club, that had the same finisher. I mean, if you were to ask me who put on a better performance between the Japanese wrestlers and the American wrestlers, I would probably say, the American wrestlers were much better by a mile. Even MJF, who is not really the greatest in the ring, his opponent, Tanahashi, I believe. Tanahashi, was struggling a lot in the ring. There were a couple times where he tried to go for a couple high spots, and as he was doing them, he was trying to situate himself on the top rope, and it just made it look really awkward. MJF really had to sell a lot just to make the shit look coherent. Even CM Punk, whose style looked as bulky and as unfluid as ever, even he kind of outshined his opponent. Another thing I really didn't like was basically just the lack of psychology and, the fact that a lot of things just didn't make sense. You had guys delivering forearms to each other basically non-stop. And the forearms didn't even really look convincing. You could tell they were not connecting. I mean, I know Japan is all about strong style and it's very strike-oriented, but the least you can do is make the strikes look believable, you know what I mean? And speaking of believability, you had this guy named Tomohiro Ishii who was hyped up as this big, tough Japan legend, like a Pitbull or whatever, and he was in one of the tag matches. And I noticed that even though he was probably about 5 inches shorter than everyone else in the match, he was still performing these big power moves and even did a shoulder block, and I think he knocked Jericho off his feet, and Jericho's 6'2". I don't know, I don't really remember, but yeah. And also you had Okada versus Bryan Danielson, and admittedly, like I said, I'm not very well versed in Japan stuff, so this was actually the first time I've actually seen Okada wrestle, and I know he's very much hyped up in the internet wrestling community as one of the best of this generation, so I was actually really looking forward to this match because of that hype. I will say that he does seem pretty charismatic. I also really like the gimmick he has with the falling money and being the rainmaker and whatnot, and he did have some solid spots and some solid moves, but I couldn't help but notice that his finisher is a ripcord clothesline, which I know I kind of touched on this before, but this guy is supposed to be hyped up as one of the best Japan has to offer, if not the best. I just expected his finisher to be a lot more impressive than what it was. Like I said, I know I'm being repetitive here, but that just really kind of threw me off guard, and that's why I'm asking, for the people that are, fans of Japan wrestling and, stand by it and say it's the best type of wrestling there is, I want to know, what is it about Japanese wrestling that you enjoy? Because, I mean, and who knows, maybe this was just this was an off night, it was not the best night for the NJPW talent, But I just want to know, like, what usually does NJPW put out that you like so much? Because based on what I saw, what they're putting out is not really that great. So yeah, in summation, I'm just asking for somebody to educate me on what I'm not getting here, because based on what I'm seeing, my interpretation is that New Japan Wrestling pretty much encapsulates what everyone says is wrong with AEW wrestling and North American indie wrestling in general. Just like a no psychology, no sense-making clusterfuck fever dream. So yeah, please like and subscribe and comment, and like I said, please interact with me, and let's have some discourse about this topic in the comments. But yeah, thank you for watching, and have a good day.